Welcome in, Daily Show at 9:15 on this Friday morning. Oh, it ain't yesterday. I would have taken 90 again.
No doubt about that.
Brian, thank you so much for your time, and really appreciate it. We're going to have our conversation now with the Alton Museum of History and Art, and really appreciate Brian's time. As, you know, we really get to share your perspective on things. And I know, you know, my correspondence with you went back a couple of years ago, just to kind of start that process off. And, you know, if you want here, I can read you exactly what I wrote, and that way the public knows too, you know, just kind of how
Please,
we got to this point.
Sure.
Yeah, so I sent this on November the 13th, 2024, and said, good morning, my name's CJ Nasello, and I host our daily show on RiverBender.com and Roku TV. I've had numerous requests about potentially doing an interview to talk about how we can support and help the Alt Museum. I'd love to let the audience and region know about the ways we can support and get it back to 100%. I'm very flexible next week, and I signed it with my name. And then your response, I'll read it right afterwards if you want. This was a couple of days later, still in 2024. It was November the 20th. And this is right here. Thank you for your email, Mr. Nasello, for this generous invitation. We'll be addressing this immensely important subject publicly soon. However, it is a simple and easily understood story, unfortunately. Communities and neighborhoods need to positively support their local, cultural, long-standing institutions, especially those dedicated to education and to harbor a long, well-documented history of service. Instead, as we've seen in Alton over the last few years, several organizations seem to prefer vilification as the preferable treatment and reaction when difficult times and circumstances arrive. Most regretfully, let me speak correctly, it is a tragedy that many local businesses and other organizations are only missed well after the damage has been dealt. Thank you again for the invitation, your work and interest on this subject. And then sent you a follow-up, and if you want, I can read that follow-up too. We're here now,
Yeah,
so that
it's totally necessary. We appreciate that gesture, and I think that kind of sums it up. But if, as I told you earlier, if you allow me to read something, it really, really puts in perspective the kind of atmosphere we're working in, and it's an historical bit, and unfortunately, it's kind of it's a thing that's unchanged, something that really doesn't really change through history. And if you will, just give me a minute. It's only about 2 paragraphs, but it really, really puts perspective as to our environment. I'll read it, and then I'll tell you who wrote it and why it's applicable. But, quote, in Lyndon Johnson's book, My Hope for America, the 5th chapter is titled Toward the Great Society. It contains this paragraph, and double quote, 50 years from now, there will be 400 million Americans, 4/5 of them in urban areas. In the remainder of this century, we will have to build homes, highways, and facilities equal to all those built since this country was first settled. In the next 40 years, we must rebuild the entire urban United States. Unquote. And this goes back to the author of this essay. It is a staggering sentence. The city we inhabit at this moment is already close to a total reconstruction of the world our parents knew in their childhood. If there is no nuclear war, if we shift from Cold War to some kind of peace, and there is a worldwide rise in the standard of living, then indeed we will build a huge new country. This is a sentence I really like to highlight. It is possible that not 1 in 1,000 of the buildings put up by 1899 will still be standing in the year 2000. Mm-hmm. So that was the text, and this is taken from an essay written by Norman Mailer called Streets in the Clouds, and it appeared in 1965. Mm-hmm. But we keep going back to this because that sentence, it is possible that not 1 in 1,000 of the buildings put up in 1899 will still be standing in the year 2000. Here it is, we're 26 years beyond that date, and the building we work in is built in 1832. Yeah. 60 years older than the date he says those buildings are most of them be gone by this time.
Right.
So the reason I bring that up is it kind of puts in an atmosphere and a text as to the conditions we're working in. We were working in an extremely sensitive, extremely rare situation.
Yeah.
Coupled with the fact that we're working in Alton, where most of our history is, I'm sure you well known, is gone.
Yeah.
Physically.
Yeah.
So with that said, it really puts a light in the difficult situation we're operating in.
Well, and I really appreciate that sentiment on it, and appreciate your thoughts, because I mean the building, it's a little bit, there's aging infrastructure for sure. And before we go into all of that, let's just kind of dive right into the conversation, because
Sure.
I think it was a great precursor. There's a lot of people that are online. There's a lot of questions being asked, whether they're rightfully asked or respectfully asked, different questions, but they're still being asked. And the biggest one is, what's the current condition of the properties for Alton Museum of History and Art as they currently sit?
Physically speaking, well, as you said, everything. That's the thing about history work and preservation. It'll never end. It's just perpetual. We'll never get to a state where we've finally met to the point where these things are stable and we no longer need to work on them.
Yeah.
It's a never-ending process.
Well, and let's lead up to what led to the closure, I guess, of the History Museum. What was the biggest factors, if you will, that led up to that decision?
Well, there was no single issue. There's 4 primary things that have evolved over the years since 2020. At first, of course, the first 2 years was the pandemic. We can't morally and legally and I guess rightfully ask people to come into a building that we cannot modify to make it safe. It's an 1832-year-old building. It's almost 200 years old. We can't punch holes in it to improve ventilation. That was the issue for a couple of years. And then, as was reported incorrectly in another venue, some restoration work was done outside of the building on campus. And unfortunately, that did affect the building physically. And it was incorrectly reported that those repairs were made, and we moved on from that. And I guess to really bore your readers or your listeners with details, essentially a water line, sewer line, and I think it was a gas line were all improved upon outside the building. Some of those restorations did some physical damage to the building, and some of that was addressed later on, but it's still not to the point where it's functional.
Right.
Those are 3 primary reasons. You got a pandemic and external forces that have damaged the building. But fourthly, has to do with another piece of property that, through years of deliberation and argument and fighting with the city, we essentially had to relocate almost an entire museum's worth of objects and artifacts to our main facility, which is on campus, Loomis Hall, which is 1832. So essentially, in a short span of time, we have doubled, if not tripled, our contents or objects that we have in possession of the building. These are things we had already had in possession, but they were in a different location. And for like the last year and a half, almost 2 years, we have been trying to sort and organize that material. And the iconic we often refer to the iconic last image of the movie The Raiders Lost Ark, the scene where they go into the warehouse. That's what the interior of the museum looked like for almost 2 years. We could not move inside there.
Right. Well, and I understand that, and there's things that happen. I don't know if it was it code that was kind of the fight with the city? Was it a code violation that was the fight back and forth, or what led to that? I guess would be the first question to get us to the museum artifacts getting transported into that building.
That's how it initially began. Was appearance of the building. It's a historic district. It's an historic home. Lucas Pfeifferberger. It was one of the last buildings. Famous Alton architect, Lucas Pfeiffer. It's one of the last buildings he built. And its appearance, the city got onto us as far as its appearance and stuff like that. We worked on it, and through a long deliberations of slowly improving it, and the city not really saying, well, you guys are not doing as good a job as you can. With the limited funds we didn't get it accomplished in the time that they thought we should have.
Okay. Well, and so that's just what leads us up to this point. And just to make sure we're clear for the audience, so the museum's closed because of a couple of different factors. You've listed COVID, the code enforcement concerns the building, issues that were being repaired on and worked on. Whenever you're looking back on this, I mean, and now you have all these documents in here, and I want to ask you about those too. Is there even a timeline in the board's eyes of, here, can we do this? Because the reason I ask is there's been a lot of public sentiment of, if the museum's not going to open, we'd like our artifacts back that we donated. And, to me, if they aren't going to display, then that might be a conversation that you have to have.
Sure. Well, we are eventually going to open up. When that will be, I don't know. You can't put a concrete date on and say this is when it's going to happen. I mean, we will be open at some point.
Okay.
Whether it's going to be in that building or another one, eventually we are going to be open.
Well, and I ask you that because it seems like there's a lot of organizations and various public figures that have publicly stated that they have, tried to collaborate. Is there a way that we can work a little bit, that you see a smoother timeline with working with different agencies to get the funding you need? Or, I mean...
Well, we have worked with different organizations. We yearly collaborate with Lewis and Clark. We're now coordinating with the main campus, which we've had a good relationship for years. Several organizations we've worked with. We've been on a national volunteer website for over 8 years, and prior to that, we were.
Okay. So there's just no definite reopening timeline yet, just because of the factors that are faced.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and now when it goes into the organization, I know that folks have been curious, and I think that it's also fair to say, for your perspective, that there's been numerous opportunities to support and be a part of this before the last 2 years, or before the last 4 years, or before COVID. Take me through the organization and the leadership background of the board, and just the way you guys work. Do you guys meet monthly still, or what's that look like?
Yeah, there's all kinds of rumors going around. It's kind of sad, but we do have meetings. Most of it because of the nature of the season, especially since the fall. We usually typically don't meet during holidays and stuff like that. But a lot of our coordination and communication is done through email. We do everything pretty much as we're supposed to do it.
Okay.
Despite the rumors that are going around, but. All our board has from the very beginning, since 1971. We've been in a museum for coming up on 55 years. We're going to share an interesting birthday along with the nation. They'll be turning 250, and very soon after we'll be turning 55. But our organization goes back to 48. We got started as an association, Alton Area Historical Society, back in 1948. And then we later evolved into a museum in 71. So ever since the very beginning, it's always been a volunteer organization.
Yeah.
And that's the way we kind of wanted it. We wanted it separate from local institutions so that we could be isolated from the varying political and sociological kind of things that kind of come and go. And that's the way it is now, and that's the way we want to keep it. But that's a benefit, but it's also kind of a detriment to how we work.
Well, and what I'm asking is there a copy of bylaws anywhere? I know that's been asked. You guys have bylaws that you can share?
We've had bylaws since 1971.
Oh, and I'm asking because the public has asked, about those, and just ways that maybe they could join a board or try to be a part of this. And that's the only reason I'm asking, because there could be some work there that maybe you can partner up and get some, younger blood.
Well, sure. I mean, in April, we've got a nice National Volunteer Week, and we've already posted. We've already got people who are responding to that. We do that annually, and it's like any organization. You got to start at the bottom, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether you think you're an expert in history if you've got 3 PhDs in the subject. If you're going to get involved with an organization, you start at the bottom. You got, like I tried to, make a point earlier, is that we're working in a very delicate situation. We're not an antique store. We're not a T-shirt salesman. We're working with rare, delicate things that in some cases they're one of a kind.
Yeah. Well, and see, that's where I think the concern also comes in with the buildings, because if are they all up to code, or is the air right in there? Is it too humid? Is it too hot? Is the air conditioning running? And I know that for someone that maybe hasn't heard of or seen where the artifacts are, it makes sense because you got a huge room of things you're going through. I could see the concern there if they go, what's the current condition of these artifacts?
Well, that's been an issue for a long, long time, and there's been a lot of rumors about we're storing artifacts improperly with the carriage house, with the Waddle House, but just looking at the things, you can know that they're not properly sealed. Those two particular things, and we've never put objects in those environments that were sensitive to those kind of conditions. We never have.
That's what I was curious about. And so, do you guys have an inventory list at some sort?
Of course.
Okay, that's what I was curious about. And if at some point in time, and I only ask this because I'm only asking what I've been sent, and I can show you 50 different emails, and trying just to pick through what I think is fair for everyone. Is there a way that ever you would not put publicly the inventory? You don't want to do that, but for the families that have reached out, say, here's where these items are?
Well, as far as the location, I mean, they're with the museum and they're protected, but we have not gotten any kind of email directly, as far as I know, relating to that, we would like to have our stuff back. And what I don't understand is, we learned this a long time ago that most legitimate organizations, museums, will have you sign a donation form, some sort of a receipt.
Right.
Saying this is what we're giving to you. And most of those things will have some sort of sentence or phrase or saying, you're donating this to the museum, and you're giving up your rights and interest in it for future kind of things, because grandfather would come down and he'd give his World War II medals, and if the grandkids come back and say, he wasn't in his right mind, he shouldn't have done that, we want him back.
Right.
It creates a chaotic environment.
Well, and I totally get that,
Yeah.
and I get the disclaimer, and I think the only disconnect is if it's not open, then the museum is not really abiding by displaying it to the public either.
Sure.
So, I mean, I get your sentiment that, the public is giving these things and they're signing rights over, but at the end of the day, is there any accountability of, hey guys, it's been 6 years since COVID. We've, here's what we need to do better for you. That's what I'm kind of asking today.
Like your guests have alluded to, the volunteer and the dedication helping places that need these kind of work. It's a continual thing. It's never going to end. Mm-hmm. And we're working in a very contentious environment around here.
Yeah.
Because many times I've made our kind of condition regionally in this area is kind of like, are you familiar with the Kardashev, Nikolai Kardashev kind of type 1 type civilizations?
Yeah.
Type 4 civilizations, Nikolai Kardashev, he brought this system up in the 60s, essentially saying these are the kind of levels of intelligent civilization that may be out there. In my opinion, as far as our heritage and culture and artifacts are concerned in this area, we're like in a 0.3 kind of civilization. We're still manipulating and exploiting our culture and heritage items for economic purposes. Museum would like to see us get to about a type 1 civilization where we're appreciating our heritage and culture for the sake of their heritage and culture, and we're not necessarily exploiting them financially.
Right.
We want them to be appreciated, preserved, learned from, strictly on those aspects. Mm-hmm. But we're so far from that right now, at least in this area.
I think there is a disconnect with that too. I totally think it's fair, but also, if there's an organization that's not saying we want you to charge for this, but if, there's an organization out there that's a public entity that says we just want to get this back up and running, and I know that you've mentioned Lewis and Clark, and there's some different aspects there which are important, but money to get the building up and running is probably the most important. If there's someone out there right now that's willing to step up and do it, would you collaborate with them?
Well, we have already.
No, because they're still closed. What I mean is, if someone today said, Brian, we're going to give you $100,000 to get you up and ready to do it, would you be open in the next month?
If that came with no strings attached, if we didn't have to sit there and subservient the museum to certain clauses and expectations, fine and dandy. We've been a museum for far too long to be playing those kind of games. And I've said it many times, the city owes that museum an extraordinary amount of debt. Because, the museum and its members, people who've been associated, literally created a foundation for which the city relies upon now. What's tourism? How important is that to this town nowadays?
It's very important, but it's also needing, to be open for that to be viewed. And I get your point, Brian, but we're 6 years in, and there's been, I can go through if you want, of people that have reached out and of various entities that have said, hey, let's collaborate. And,
reached out with you or with us?
With you. I can read here. Sure. I have some from going back as early as the second mayor of Alton that families have reached out and said, here's my grandfather, Charles B. Howard. He was Alton's second mayor. And he's asking you, and there's all these different things from 2023. And it really is saying, well, thanks for donating, but it's up to the public to get this back open. It seems like the last couple of years, the public's saying, let's get you back open anyway. But you're saying it has to be our way or we aren't opening back up.
No, not at all. But when if supposedly they volunteer their time, why are they not showing up?
Well, because right here, you have kind of closed. You don't list when your meetings are. You don't really list when board meetings are. You guys kind of meet, and you just said it earlier that there's not a set schedule. You guys take breaks. There's not very transparent meeting notes. And that's what I think it comes back to, too, where the public wants to help, but there's also got to be some transparency from the board on the work that's being done because there are publicly donated items.
Sure.
And so, is there term limits on the board? Is there a way that people can join the board to make these changes?
Well, like I said, you start in and you introduce yourself.
Yeah.
Go through a process. This is who I am. This is who I represent. This is what we want to see happen. But that doesn't happen.
Right, I get that point, but when state reps or when cities are coming out and you have various organizations or organizations around the city saying, "Hey guys, we want to get to know you, but we also want to help."
Well, we can address that as well. I brought a list of emails that we have sent through the city.
Yeah.
This goes back mainly to 2024 because that was when it was really starting to hit a public overspill essentially, but. Up to December 2024, we were extremely reluctant to say this is the reality of the situation because it did not prevent or present a positive light on the area.
Right.
And we expressed that. Said, we have tried and tried and tried to be positive, but unfortunately it's gotten to the point where it's becoming more and more difficult. And we talked to several city benefactors saying, we're not having a choice. We've got to essentially tell people essentially what's going on. And that was December 2024. And that was in response to a meeting we had with the mayor that we initiated in September of 2024. And we expounded to him in detail, said, this is the issues, this is what's going on, this is what we need. Zero response to that meeting.
Really?
Zero response. And I did the math yesterday. As of today, that's been 547 days, and we have not gotten an official response from saying, that meeting was great, but guess what? Here's the issues. We would have appreciated a response saying,
that.
We heard you, but we're not going to help you. That would have been at least a response.
Brian, I get that. And so it's seriously been 547 days since you have had any court,
From that particular meeting.
Wow. And see, that's why I'm glad you're on too, because I think it's important for the public to know that there are, here's the efforts being made from your guys' end too. Is there any more circumstances like that you'd like to share? And I only ask that because I want you to have the floor too, and whatever you.
I appreciate that, CJ. Most specifically, yes. In I think it was, I get the date written down here, December, following that post we put on, we got I'm not going to mention names, but we did get a response from one of the ward members, alderman, and essentially they said, okay, let's talk about this. And I immediately responded saying, okay, let's talk about this. Let's talk about it right here.
Yeah.
Again, zero response. And that was that December of 2024. That's been 465 days since we got a response. That person has since moved on to a different position. That could allude for some of the silence, but
wow.
And then following that, in their a series of emails from the 28th of March through April 2024, another city official, we initiated a series of emails with us saying, we want to see you guys open again. I said, great, let's do it. Let's work together. I think that email lasted maybe 4 transactions, complete silence.
Really? And and it's good to know that, because if there's connections being made with city officials, there need to be known that, hey, we're reaching out and we're getting we're kind of getting ghosted here.
And I think the issue is that we have, over a period of years, this goes back well over 6-8 years, I like to see things in writing. I like to see things written down and recorded. We're a museum. We like to
right here with you.
Make it legal. And I think that process scares a lot of people.
Oh, for sure. I would agree with that.
And it's just like the word plausible deniability comes to mind.
Right. 100%.
I never said that.
Yeah. Well, and see, that's why I'm glad to ask you these questions a little bit more. And I know that, it seems at times it gets contentious, but it's because everyone cares, right?
Sure.
We want the museum open. And I know that, the public, if they're waiting, and I don't know what the communication lines are, if it's, going on, Facebook and putting out a press release to the news and saying, here's what we're dealing with. Do you think there's a better way to get that message out to the public that here's what's being done?
Facebook's a pretty effective medium. I mean, even though it's going through some rather contentious moments, as all social media seems to be. But we did this in 2024. We laid it out there. So this is the issues we're dealing with, and I would say not much has improved since then.
So, there's a lot of bad going on. And that's why, not to be the bearer of bad news or anything, but there's not a lot of positive when it comes to this. You got older buildings. You have, lack of, donations or lack of finances to get these things done. Mm-hmm. Have you guys ever thought of, we're getting the kind of this grief from, the public. Has there ever been a time where your guys are going, maybe it's time for someone else to take it over, then let it be their mess?
Well, that's a difficult issue, because who would those people be? That's an enormous amount of responsibility. And when we have volunteer, weeks, and we have our outreach programs, and our Earth Tones Festival, which is a fantastic thing. We have our Jazz Festival every year. We do our National Volunteer Week, and we're starting something with the Lock and Dam Museum. We're trying to get that initiated going every year. Where are these people at? Who are they?
Well, they're all over. So, they're all over the Historical Society, and I get what you're saying, but I think it would be fair. I could give you 5 right now. They're the coalition, and I think you know who they are that are saying, give us the museum if there's so much bad here. Yeah. So that's why I'm asking. So at no point are you ready to do that at that point? Is there too much promise here? Or that's what I'm curious about.
Well, it always comes down to, what have they done to deserve that kind of access? What work have they done to preserve history? What work have they done to say we're worthy of running this museum? What work have they done? Where's the record of
There's a lot of it. I think that if you had the conversation, you'd be surprised.
Okay.
So I think I don't want to try to push back on you, but I think just to kind of just claim that there's no one out there would be a little bit of a lame. I mean, because if you're going through all this, why even deal with it anymore? I mean, that's just where we're at. And so going into this, can we volunteer on April? That volunteer we can join and maybe hopefully be a part of this growth.
Go to Volunteer Match. I mean, I'm sorry, they changed their name. It's now idealist.org. Sign up. It lets us know who's going to be showing up, how many people, and we'll be outside as we have been out there for the last 8-9 years. We got a table. We got a pavilion.
Is it all week too? Or just a day or two?
Nationally, it's an entire week. I think it's the 19th through the 26th.
We'll link it and get people there. That's what I mean by it, Brian. Seriously, I want to make sure we get people out there to do it. For anybody else that's right now going, okay, for 501c3, if I donate, if I do all this, where do you guys sit? I mean, are you healthy still as your 501c3? Is everything looking good in that regard? Can we get you more assets or anything like that? Because the only reason I ask is if there's a money issue, I'm sure the public will be willing to help in that regard too, with it being that 501c3 status.
From day one, that's how we have existed. We have a permanent sign in the museum. It's been up there since day one. We get no ongoing financial support. We have nothing from the federal government, local government, state, nothing. It's all donations, private donations or grants.
Well, and see, that's where I think it's really important. And one question I do have, and this is one that I think is an easy question, is the fact that you guys are closed for the time you're closed. Online, it has that you went from 2021, it had $108,000 in assets. Now we're down to $73,000. Is that just costs of the building maintenance and all? And that's really the only reason I ask, because I've had that question sent to me, and just want your thoughts on it. Is that cost of the building, or is it just upkeep costs?
Sure. Yeah, we just corresponded with an official entity. We've got, I think it was 7 ongoing utility issues or bills that we got to pay, from banking to forms to electricity, utilities, and general maintenance. Yeah, it's all goes towards that.
Really, and Brian, like I said, it's been a great conversation. I only say that because we haven't gotten your position on it, and so to know that, hey, you're reaching out to people. I mean, 547 days is the headline, I think.
It's pretty shameful.
What do you want the public to know the most about your guys' group right now? About the board, about what you guys are doing? What if I could just get out of your way and let you have the floor? What would you want the public to seriously know the most about?
Anybody who starts up at the museum, I say this to all of our volunteers, I try to introduce them to a concept called Kaizen. We work in a very slow progress. We have to, because we're dealing with delicate things. Very slow incremental improvements over a long period of time. We don't go out there and say we need to make drastic change immediately. Mm-hmm. If it takes us years to get to where we need to be, we'll take years. But we're not going to sit there and do something and have to go back and replace it and redo it numerous times because we do it right the first time. That's essentially how we function, which is completely different from most other organizations that are not historical.
Really interesting. And Ryan, what's the best way if somebody wants to reach out and truly help? If they're watching this going, hey, I want to volunteer, I want to get this back. What's the best way to do it? Email
us. It's always there, and it's ubiquitous. You can from your phone and computer, and it's usually there. And this April, I think we're going to be out there 3 or 4 days. National Volunteer Week. It's something we've done for a very long time.
And we'll link, if it's okay, just let you guys know, it's altmuseum@gmail.com. It's a simple email. Volunteer, be a part of this. And like I said, I know that there's a lot of people that wanted to get your perspective, and I really appreciate the respect and time you gave me.
Sure thing.
And I hope that you were able to get what you wanted out on the floor, too, from this. And I really hope you were able to.
Me too. Thank you, CJ.
We'll take a quick break at 9:45, a little bit of change. Our Friday morning show continues right after this. RiverBender.com, Roku TV.